Welcome to the podcast. We Do Recover with Jared Miller, your host.
And I'm Dr. Terry Sellers, your co-host.
This is a podcast about recovery from addiction.
We want to talk about what successful recovery can look like.
Brought to you by Steps Recovery Center and the St. George Hilton Garden Inn.
Welcome, everybody, to the podcast, We Do Recover with Jared Miller. Hey, this is a weird podcast for me because the name of the podcast is We Do Recover with Jared Miller, but there's no Jared Miller. So today it's We Do Recover with Jared Miller without Jared Miller. Jared's on a little family vacation. I think they went to the I don't know if they went to the North Rim, but they went to the Grand Canyon.
South Rim, I asked him.
Okay, he went to the South Rim of the Grand Canyon. I'm not that familiar with the Grand Canyon to know. I'm guessing the South Rim is on the
That's the Brady Bunch side, yeah.
Of the Grand Canyon. Yeah, I know. I'm brilliant. I don't know what that means.
The Brady Bunch episode took place on South Rim.
Oh, I don't remember a Brady Bunch episode.
Yeah, I got that one.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't. I watched a bunch of Brady Bunch, but I don't
Obviously
remember.
not that one.
Yeah,
they
apparently.
went to the Grand Canyon.
Well, let's remember this. I'm also really old. I probably saw it 5 times and still can't remember it. So it's all good. Hey, let's start off with, we have a new sponsor, Recovery Strong. Recovery Strong is all about fighting addiction and strengthening recovery. If you go to recoverystrong.com, right now they're promoting a couple of their products, their hoodies and their hats. And if you go there and punch in the promo code hoodie25, you'll get 25% off, not just the hoodies, but also the hats. And it's a perfect time of year to buy a hoodie. It's starting to get a little chilly. Although not down here as much as where I am, but it's pretty cold up where I am at. So recoverystrong.com, go there, support them. They're a great sponsor for us, and they're all about fighting addiction and strengthening recovery. Also, one of our longtime sponsors, Steps Recovery Center, where healing begins, where addiction ends and healing begins. Steps Recovery Center, if you happen to have a loved one that needs some help, and that's a great place to send them. Reach out to them. Their phone number is 801-800-8142, Steps Recovery Center. Again, those folks are great. They do a really nice job, and that's a great place to send a loved one to get some help. All right, let's get to some content. We got a special guest in the studio. I know him by a name that's not his name, but his name's Will Allphin. But I know him by...
Skippy LaTroy.
Skippy LaTroy. That's a Facebook persona. Is that, a social media persona, not Facebook per se.
It started on Facebook.
Did it? Yeah. Okay, that's a social media persona. Tell us how that came to be.
So, not in recovery at the time.
Okay.
I went to Warped Tour with my 2 sons.
Who was playing that year?
Who
do you remember?
I remember Billy Idol killing it at 95 years old or whatever. Holy cow.
Billy Idol's 107 now, still killing it.
I think so. That's one I remember. Offspring.
Okay.
It was a good year.
Yeah.
Facebook was, I still had my MySpace page.
Oh,
then
there you go.
Facebook had a tent up, and I'm like, oh, this flash in the pan. Well, I might as well go in. And so I went in and created this. I had this persona that I blogged under, Skippy LaTroy, who was a French-Canadian redneck. Long story. That's it. No, it's not that long of a story. And so I created the persona under that. And then at different times thought about, people knew me, but I should change it back. And then working in the treatment field, I managed an alumni page for the organization that I was working with. And there were rules. You can't technically be Facebook friends, it gave me a degree of separation. So I kept it, and it's
those are interesting rules sometimes, those sort of, if you weren't friends with them before they came to treatment, you're not supposed to be after, and that sort of stuff. And in this day and age of social connectivity, it's kind of hard to pull off sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we do want to maintain some contact with people. It's helpful to them and helpful to us, but interesting. Okay, well, I jumped the gun a little bit because one of the things we always do on the first part of our podcast is new and goods. And so we're going to start with new and goods. And of course, I'm going to start with our producer, the man that runs the show, the guy who gets everything going, the guy who we blame for everything,
Wow.
Sean Denovan.
Wow.
Sean?
New and good.
What's new and good?
I don't know. This week has been a questionable week. It's gone by so fast. There's nothing that's really stood out.
Okay, just kind of flew by.
Met with the contractor yesterday for our house.
Wait, you're building a house?
We're trying to.
Did I know that? Did you talk about that last week?
I don't know.
I don't think I knew that.
It's secondary to the motorcycle.
So to me, that's new and good.
Yeah.
Your house is. That's
So-
probably
so
that's probably true in your life. Your house is secondary to the motorcycle.
Yeah, pretty much. So anyway, we took him out to the lot site and we said, okay, here are the plans we've had for the year. Here's this, here's that. How much?
And
Well, that's not good. So I'm not going to share that part.
Oh,
But
okay.
the new part is
The
that we
new
went
is
out
that
there.
you're getting a new house.
But yeah,
The price wasn't good.
yeah,
It's a price.
Even compared to trying to buy in this market?
yeah. Well, okay, so
It's a
we
tough
we
market.
bought the lot for 40. Okay, now he says it's worth at least 150
Just for okay.
just for the lot. I'm like,
so
okay.
that's new and good.
I said, okay, that's cool. So we can like flip it, make some money. That's great. I said, but I want a house. Want to build a house. And 2 years ago, I was like, okay, probably about $350 to build the house. We're looking at nothing special. Now we're looking at $550 plus.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh,
Okay.
well, I guess we're moving to Apple Valley in one of those little tiny homes.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's the way this market goes, isn't it?
Yay!
Yeah. Well,
Housing in St. George.
just do it. It's always a good investment.
You drive a Tesla or whatever.
I drive a Hyundai Sonata.
Yeah, but that's more than what I can afford.
I drive a Hyundai Sonata.
I know, but
That's not a fancy car, my friend.
But
I love my car.
okay.
I do love it, but,
All right.
but it's not a Tesla anymore. I was headed to a Tesla, and I got derailed by my wife, who said, we're buying something cheaper than that. But I love the car, so it's okay.
So that's my new and good.
All right.
Hopefully,
Well, awesome.
maybe next week I might say, yes, we're building the house.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Uncle Gary died. Left us a bunch of money.
Gary, I hope you're okay out there.
All right.
If there is an Uncle Gary. Will, we have a thing new and goods in your life. Anything new and good?
Well, the new is I started working for a new organization. That's good. I love what I'm doing. I've always been in for the last 12 years, been in treatment or in recovery. This is even lower barrier, gives me an opportunity to reach people earlier, so that's good. Also,
Do you want to talk about it?
yeah.
What is it?
So, Clean the World is the name of the organization.
Okay.
You can. I
Oh,
don't
you
have
got
my-
Recovery Strong on.
I
You
got
had-
Recovery Strong on. I
You
had
had
my.
Clean the World on.
I had my.
Hold it up.
I
We
will
got
hold
people
it up
watching.
if I can get it there,
Yeah. Don't worry about it.
and if I can see it. It is Clean the World. It's Wash Your
Front-
Hands, bro.
Front of the shirt says "Wash your hands, bro."
In the back is our
Back of the shirt
logo.
says "Clean the World."
And I brought a couple for you guys as
thanks.
well.
Tell me what
one
Clean
in
the
blue,
World
one
is.
in red. So Clean the World. One of the things we do, we have partnerships with hotels all over the world, and we take like at the Hilton
Right.
Garden. How often do you use all the soap or all the
Right.
whatever?
No,
So
never.
we take.
The
We-
unused ones.
Take the unused, well, even the,
old
used
unused
ones.
ones. Okay. Old used ones.
They pay us to haul it off. They
Okay.
collect it. We take the soap, we reprocess it, we sterilize it, we reform it into these nice little
Sweet.
new bars with our logo on it, and we recycle the plastic. It lowers their footprint. With the reprocessed, we send out hygiene supplies to more than 100 countries all over the world.
Oh wow.
In Las Vegas, in Orlando, part of that new is I'm the regional director for Clean the World for their Fresh Start Wash and Wellness. We have mobile hygiene units, so shower trucks. We have a 36-foot trailer, 4 shower stalls. I've got 3 of them in Las Vegas. I will be over Denver and over Seattle as well. We have 1 unit each for those.
So you say regional manager or regional
Yeah,
director?
regional director.
Manager. So the regional director is, where's your region? What's your region?
So right now it's everything west of Texas.
Okay.
And so we have, again, locations in the home base, the company's based in Orlando. We have Las Vegas. We're just opening up in Aurora, Colorado,
Okay.
and just opening up in Seattle. We take these mobile hygiene units into areas experiencing with high experience of homelessness.
Okay.
Take them in and give people some dignity back
Wow.
for 20 minutes a day. Give them
Wow.
a shower, some hygiene supplies, let them get cleaned up, And again, that's the lower barrier way to introduce them to recovery of life, as well as, there's high incidence of mental illness coupled most of the time with substance use. So it gives the opportunity to look somebody in the eye, talk to them, treat them like a human being, because they are human beings.
I think that's awesome.
It's a cool mission.
We
That's
don't
what attached to
don't
it.
all get to have jobs where we feel like we might help somebody every single day. A lot of people in the recovery industry do. You can feel that way about your job, but man, you really are helping at the grassroots level for sure. That's really a cool opportunity. How long you been with them then?
Since the middle of September.
Wow.
Yeah.
So this is a month old
Yep.
for you. Wow. Little different direction for you.
It's very, very different. A lot more hands-on than I was hands-on, but my last position, I was with Foundation for Recovery previously. The last position was training and activities coordinator, and so I spent a lot of time training other professionals rather than I was a certified
Right.
peer recovery support specialist. Instead of doing the one-on-one with those people in the midst of substance use, trying to, seeking recovery, I was training other people.
You're a step removed
Yeah,
from actual
yeah.
people that
so
are needing recovery.
This gets me right
I like
back
that.
on the ground.
I like that. That's super cool.
It's been cool.
All right. Well, let's talk about Will Allphin.
Well, what was your new and good?
Oh, hold on. I got something in my throat. That's not new or good. Okay. All right. New and good. I'm down here with my wife. My wife doesn't come down with me every single time, so that's fun. I always like that. And good. I got a new car, but I think I talked about that a couple times ago. I really like that. Is there anything else that's really good? Not so much. I don't. Everything for me is kind of just stable. Last time I was down here, I was a little bit sick and wasn't very good, but I feel much better finally now. So we had a. This is not new nor good. We had at one of the treatment centers I work, we had a therapist die from COVID. Like suddenly. This guy, you'll know the kind of guy. This is a big, soft-hearted, like bear. Like everybody loves this guy. He was our equine therapist. He was that kind of guy like this. And he really, really tragically, he has a bunch of kids, and he's not a big fan of modern medicine, Western medicine. And so he got sick, didn't want to go to the doctor, Finally, one day went to the doctor and said, "Doc, I'm super sick." And the doc said, "You're going to die. There's nothing we can do." 2 hours later, he was dead. So tragic. That's not bringing the podcast up at all, but man, just that we've been devastated at one of our treatment centers. We had seven employees with COVID. We had one die. We had another recovery specialist who was on the ventilator in the ICU at Utah Valley for like 37 days. And she's actually going to survive. They gave her a 10% chance of survival, but man, this thing has just been crazy.
It's hit the community here in St. George particularly hard as well.
Yeah,
the recovery community.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's get away from that bit of sad news and let's go to tell us a little bit about yourself, your life. We talked about your job, and we might get back to that some, but tell us a little bit about who Will Allphin is now.
Oh, now.
So have we ever met?
We have at a couple of the Renaissance Ranch golf tournaments,
Okay,
a couple
right,
other events. I think at the fall conference
Okay.
here.
I first knew of you I worked with your sister at Provo Canyon Behavioral Hospital, and she said, "Hey, I got a brother that's had some issues with drugs," and I'm like, "Oh, really? Who is it?" She said your name, and I think I already knew it. But, yeah, so anyway, it's nice to get to spend some time with you.
Yeah, I'm glad
I don't
to
think
be
we've played golf together, so we need to do
adjacent, golf adjacent, like I said.
So
at
I hit
some of the
into you
tournaments.
accidentally?
Well, no.
You were
my
on the fairway off to the right, and I hit it over there accidentally, probably.
Or our balls hit midair on opposing.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
All right, so what's going on in your life? What are you? Tell me about.
So, well, how I got here in St. George specifically, about almost 13 years ago, I my former spouse packed me up and dumped me on my parents' front porch in Washington City.
Wow.
And said he's broken.
Your parents live down here?
Yeah,
Okay.
they did. My dad's, my mom's passed away. My dad's up in Provo at an assisted living facility. But I got dumped on my parents' front porch. I had spent the previous 10 years trying to find recovery, never really bought in, I guess.
Sure.
Was down here separated from everything, and it finally took hold. I decided to do it. Had to go and spend 6 months in the lovely confines of Utah County Jail in Spanish Fork, Utah, with then Officer Lomax. Was one of the people very instrumental early in my recovery.
Wait, do I know Officer Lomax?
Desmond
Is it
Lomax.
Desmond?
Yeah, he was.
Wow.
An officer at the jail.
I don't know that I knew that. I don't know him very well. I know of him mostly.
And I know him from there, and then I know him from fall conference things and the community here. But served that time, and then just decided to rebuild my life. I had spent the previous 25 years in aerospace as a process engineer, as manufacturing quality engineer. Finished out my engineering career. We talked about this on the way over at Young Living Essential Oils as research and development. I'd always landed on my feet, and that was part of the problem, as I never, I could always sell myself back into that engineering industry.
Yeah.
And so I would, get going, get a great job, get a better job than I had before, and then I'd take over again. And 2 years down the road, I'd have another tumbling out. So
wow.
When I came here, I decided to change my life, just change the direction,
including your job.
Including my job. The first thing I did down here was I worked in the bike shop. The first year that Ironman, when they had the full Ironman triathlon here, the first year, I got a job working on bikes. And the second job, I got a job working in movie theaters down here as a movie theater manager.
After being an aerospace engineer.
Yeah. And I just
How's
couldn't.
that? What did that do for you?
So what it did is it humbled me somewhat, but it also gave me a chance to be me and not have to sell anything all the time, not have to sell the lie that, because it was the last 5 years of my career in direct aerospace. It was fueled by pills and by alcohol, and I could just be me.
Yeah.
The worst thing I had to, and the worst thing I had to worry about, especially in the movie theaters, was burnt popcorn or a broken film. And that was back before we had, it went all digital. So we had to splice the films, but it was just gave me a chance to grow up a little.
So I grew up in aerospace engineering. That's not what I did, but that's what I thought I was going to do, because that's what my father did. My father worked for a number of aerospace companies, worked for Honeywell, and worked for, there's a few of them that were pretty big. Ball Brothers, which, interestingly enough, Ball Brothers does two things. They make glass jars. You've seen ball jars, and they make satellites. Weird. But that's what I thought I was going to do, and I went to school, and I just couldn't do it. I didn't like it very much, but man, that's kind of the thing I grew up in. So the other word for aerospace engineer, by the way, is rocket scientist. You were a rocket scientist.
That's
you were a rocket scientist.
One of my coworkers
at rocket science. Yes, it is.
At Foundation for Recovery gave me a glass rocket to put on my desk just for that reason. And she always says it's not rocket science. And then when we do naloxone trainings out in the community, she'd say it's not rocket science. And then she'd say that was her segue to me every time.
That's funny. And then you became a bike tech, or whatever that job was called.
It was mostly selling new bikes to really rich people. Yeah, it was for 2 weeks prior to the actual Ironman. They have the setup, the show right here at the Dixie Center. And just doing that was mostly, people coming in with Amex Black cards buying
Whatever
$15,000
they
bikes,
needed,
yeah,
right.
and so it was just a little bit of tuning. But
There's $15,000 bikes.
it's
pretty
that's
scary.
That back then.
That's
that was
not a
that
wildly
was in
expensive bike?
2010. Now, I mean, 22.
Oh my goodness! Wow, I once bought a $3,000 bicycle.
You know
and
Mike
thought-
Keenan.
I do.
Ask Keenan how much he spent on his last
Really?
bike. Yeah,
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
it is.
Sean has a bike, but it's a motorcycle, and it only costs like 37 cents, I think, total. Except $80,000 over the years.
Okay, let's back up a little bit.
Okay.
Before I had the motorcycle, I actually had a $2,000 mountain bike.
Whoa.
Okay, let's go back to 1992.
All right.
$2,000 mountain bike. Okay, that was probably the equivalent of your
Yeah.
of your
Yeah.
10 to 15 grand.
It's a lot
bike
of money
now.
in 92, for
yeah,
sure.
yeah. So it was a high end.
Did that cost more than the motorcycle?
Actually, yes. The money I spent in 1992, just dollar for dollar, yeah.
Yeah.
So-
Although the motorcycles cost you a whole ton of money since.
But the mountain bike is what
Do you still have a mountain bike?
It's still I still have that mountain bike.
Do you? Yeah.
I should ride it.
Yeah,
more.
you should. You should ride it once in a while. But you love the motorcycle, so
Yeah,
it's okay.
yeah.
It's easier to ride
It's
a
all good.
motorcycle.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you don't have to pedal as hard.
Yeah, I know.
For sure. Yeah. Okay, so we don't have a ton of time in the first segment left, but let's go back and talk about a little bit about your childhood. Just talk about that a little bit. Where'd you grow up? What was your family life like? Brothers, sisters?
So I grew up in Spanish Fork, Utah,
Okay.
in the shadow of the Wasatch.
Were you a Dawn?
I was a Don. In fact, I was just checking the Don football status on Twitter on our way over here.
Really?
'cause
You
I
know,
got a notification.
so I'm not going to ask you this. This is a stupid question to ask you, but Spanish Fork is more famous for being a baseball school,
yeah,
right?
exactly.
They play
won
play
region,
good
though, this
football,
year in football.
but they're definitely a great baseball school.
I think they just won region this
Oh,
year.
did they?
in football.
Oh, they're coming up in football then.
Yep.
Great.
So
Awesome.
grew up Spanish Fork, members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, 8 kids.
You have 7 brothers and sisters?
Yeah.
Where are
Julie-
you?
I am number 5.
Okay.
Julie is number 4 or
Okay,
number 6, just after me.
Julie's a nurse that I know.
Mhm.
Right.
And great. I mean, I look back at my life and I don't see what contributed to what got me in trouble, other than me getting in my own way, kind
Sure,
of.
sure.
But
You can't come up with nothing traumatic or tragic in your childhood. Or,
some early childhood trauma that, I mean, I know contributed to it, but it was more, I mean, like 3 years old and under, some early trauma that only came out later in like.
that you probably don't remember.
I don't
really.
remember
Yeah.
details of, but I had some night terrors that
Okay.
that led me to dig into it deeper after I got into recovery.
Okay. How was school?
School was, I worked as hard as I had to.
So you're a rocket scientist, is what you're saying?
Yeah, I was bored. I barely scraped through high school.
Yeah. Didn't do a
Just-
lot of work.
No, just
but-
I test day kind of a
Grades
person.
are okay.
No, like I said,
Okay.
I barely scraped
by.
through. Got
Okay.
by, yeah.
Graduated.
Graduated.
Yeah. Friends?
Had lots of friends.
Okay.
Smoked a ton of weed.
Okay.
I mean, that's what you do in
Is that where
Spanish
you
Fork.
started?
That's where I started. Got married early, my first marriage. Had some kids. That's when I started working in aerospace, going to school, doing things like that.
Did you go to college?
Went to a few and
Tried a few of them,
yeah,
did you?
yeah. Finished at Utah Valley.
Okay.
Back when it was UVU,
UVU,
at
right.
the time.
Wait, UVSC.
UVSC.
Yeah.
It
UVU now.
transitioned
Right.
after.
Right.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And worked for the same firm there in Spanish Fork, Utah. It started out as Tally, went to Teleflex, Clune Industries. It just
An aerospace firm?
Yeah, just thought that was going to be
That's it.
my life.
Yeah, you're got it all. You got the perfect job. You got a family. You got a wife.
I stopped smoking weed, stopped drinking, kind of got back into, the church of my upbringing. And then toward when I was 30 years old, 28, I had one back injury. 30 years old, had another back injury. Had a L5S1 fusion surgery at 30.
Okay,
And-
we're gonna take a pause because we're just about out of time. Join us after the break. We'll have a quick break and talk to one of our sponsors. But when we come back, we got Will Allphin in studio. He's telling us about his life, and we'll get to recovery when we get back.
You are listening to We Do Recover with Jared Miller and co-hosted by Dr. Terry Sellers. We'll be right back after this short break with more of We Do Recover with Jared Miller, sponsored by Steps Recovery Center and the Hilton Garden Inn.
I'm Desmond Lomax, one of the clinical executives here at Steps Recovery, and once you become with the Steps family, you're just a part of the Steps family. A lot of us have overcome substances, overcome addiction, and now we're able to help other people. Second of all, we're also going to help you in a way where you can afford to be helped. Third of all, we're going to give you the same quality that many organizations are charging 2 to 3 times, and it's more about you than it is about our organization.
We welcome you back to We Do Recover with Jared Miller, co-hosted by Dr. Terry Sellers.
Brought to you by Steps Recovery Center and the St. George Hilton Garden Inn.
And now with part 2 of our podcast, Jared Miller and Dr. Terry Sellers.
All right, welcome back, everybody. Part 2 won't include Jared Miller because he's at the Grand Canyon today, which means, of course, the guy that does most of the work around here. Well, Sean does most of the work, but
Damn right.
the guy, oh my gosh. I like the injection, though. Thanks. The guy that does all the work on the voice of the podcast is now at the Grand Canyon. So it's just boring me, but very exciting Will Allphin. And Will just had 2 back injuries in his story. How'd you injure your back?
The first one was I was walking into work. There, slip and fall on there was fresh snow.
That walking is a very hard activity.
Covered in ice patch, and I just went down.
Ouch.
Had a T7/8 herniation.
Oh, man.
That one, wasn't.
No surgery.
No surgery.
one?
Doctor said, I'll do 5 surgeries. 2 will get better, 2 will get worse, 1 will stay the same. So I'm like, okay, just.
Kind of the nature of
Yeah.
it. However, I don't know if you know this, Utah County, I know this, 5 years ago, Utah County was the most back surgeries per capita of any county in the United States of America.
And that's where the good doctor up there is the one who performed
my friend Howard?
Howard is
Yeah.
the one. And
that's a smart guy, by the way. Holy mackerel.
Great
surgeon, too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Howard Reichman, if anybody has a back injury, although he's close to retirement.
He is close.
That's the guy.
Man.
Yeah. We don't always
30
plug
years ago.
back surgeons, but
But
Howard's the guy.
So the second one, I was volunteering at Special Olympics and going around tearing things down after the event, pulling up tent stakes.
Ooh.
I had 1 stake in my hand, pulling the others up, and they're all coming out easy. I get one, and it just sticks, and I kind of did that thing you're not supposed to, lift and twist, and my back, I just felt it go.
Ooh, I just can feel that when you're describing it. Ouch.
And it shredded the disc. That was in June. I had surgery in August.
Okay, so you have had back surgery.
Yeah.
Okay.
I had lost 30% of the strength in my right leg, so they had to get the pressure off.
Right.
It was torn up pretty good, so fusion. The good news there was, the immediate relief happened. The strength came back. I was back at work in a week. I had 1 prescription of pain medication afterward, and I didn't refill it. No problems.
Perfect. Exactly what you're supposed to do.
Just what was supposed to happen.
Okay.
It was about.
What was that experience like, though?
So
was that was that sort of an exposure to opiates, like a first exposure?
It was, because no, it wasn't. My first experience. My mom fed me paregoric as a kid, and
remember that?
That's
remember that. You kids don't know that. You young kids don't know that. But paregoric you could get without a prescription.
And it's like,
and it's an opiate-based product.
Ouzo with an opiate
right
attached to it.
Right.
So alcohol and opiates.
Yeah, it's a beauty.
Yeah.
It's a terrible idea, but
Yeah.
it's an early exposure to
and
opiates,
it and
for
I
sure.
and I will admit I had a taste for it
but
back
it
then.
but it calms the stomach.
It does, and it calms the stomach and spanks the brain, if you will.
Yeah.
So that was early experience, and then like I said, I started smoking weed early, 13, 14,
Okay.
experimenting with alcohol, pills, things like that.
In high school.
In junior high to high school.
Okay.
So I had the taste for it. I knew I did it more recreational than it was, kind of what we did, not because of any. In retrospect, I can see that I was doing it to cover up some of that pain, the things I didn't understand from that early trauma, but it was just kind of what we did. And as I mentioned, I'd quit, when I was around 22, quit drinking, quit smoking weed.
How old were you when you got married?
I was 19.
Okay. Oh, you were young.
Yeah, I was really young.
Really young. Wow.
My uncle said, I'll pay for you to go on a mission or nothing else. And I said, no, I think I'll get married instead.
Wow.
And I did.
Did he at least give you a wedding gift?
I think he did.
Let's not disparage your uncle right here, but he was probably trying to
bless
help
his
you
heart.
out, but whatever.
So I'd cleaned up, but when the back injury happened, I had kind of remembered, oh yeah, when I took pills and I drank some alcohol,
I felt better.
It made it much, much better.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of where, so I always had that. That's one of the things that I kind of jumped into surgery is like, I'm going to do this because I can't. I had started to flirt with that again.
Okay. And you knew that could be a problem for you.
I knew
you
it
thought
could.
that could be a problem.
I thought
Okay.
it could.
All right.
So it was about a year at, let's see, it was 97 was the surgery, 99, almost 2 years later, I started having some pain that mimicked. It was they took bone donation from my right hip to pack in the fusion.
Yeah.
And I started getting some pain that exactly mimicked the pain prior to surgery.
Not right hip pain. It was your back pain.
It felt.
Okay.
I mean, the same thing. But I went and got tested, and there was no loss in strength, so the fusion was still good. It was from that bone donation site. Yeah, and I started getting pills again, and so this is like August to by December of 99, I was fully at least. I was dependent on opioids again, and I was flirting on the edge of tripping over into addiction. But
how'd that line get crossed? Like when did that happen? That you're coming from sort of normal use of prescribed opiates to more than that.
I think it's the perfect storm of. This helps the pain, the physical pain, and there's also a lot of stress to get back to work, to perform at the same level, growing family, growing bills, things like that. And I think it was just the perfect storm of this calms everything, all kinds of pain, all kinds of worry.
So for a period of time, it helped.
It did. It
helped
did.
real pain, like physical pain,
Mm-hmm.
some emotional pain,
Mm-hmm.
and just helped you cope with some of the stressors of life.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's important to acknowledge that. I think
Absolutely.
that a lot of times in recovery or in the recovery industry, we don't acknowledge that there is a purpose. They do serve a purpose in people's lives that is helpful. People don't get hooked on opiates because they started out really crappy. Like the first opiate experience, and for some period of time with normal use, it can be helpful.
Mm-hmm.
It's helpful for surgery. You almost can't do back surgery without.
I mean, there's a reason it's on the, it's essential medication,
right?
Like naloxone, like penicillin. These are things that we have to have. I'm not gonna lie to you. Dental pain is one of the worst things that I can think of.
It's so hard to deal with.
And that's what used to work for me as well. I figured out different ways on how to handle that now, but they work. They're essential. They're needed. I just remember Christmas of 1999. I'm home, got some time off of work, and I had there was a doctor that had been supplying me. We had kind of a back and forth relationship, and he had a problem. He's no longer living. He had a problem. And
Utah County guy?
yep.
I'm not going to ask you his name.
yeah.
Don't worry about it.
But he, one hand washes the other. I would get a prescription of Demerol from him, go fill it, give it back to him. He'd give me
Some of
liquid
that.
office supplies. And morphine sulfate, Dilaudid.
It's everywhere.
And he got in trouble and went to treatment. And I ran out, didn't think anything of it. Christmas 99, I'm in bed with the flu. And first time I'm dope sick, and I didn't even know it.
Right.
And
You just thought you had the worst flu ever.
Exactly. And that's when it started to, I'm sitting there in bed sick, and then it started to click into my head, oh,
I might have a problem.
yeah.
Something's going on here.
And,
Sure.
and what my head did is the problem that I said is I have a problem that doctors don't help.
The problem is, the problem is your doctor's not available to give you
Exactly.
the solution.
And that's what sent me on my way to
Okay.
driving to Salt Lake to go get the supplies that are there 24/7.
Those supplies are carried in balloons?
Carried in balloons, yes.
Sometimes? Yeah.
Go from a mouth to a balloon to a mouth to your hand.
Well, it
and-
might have come from somewhere else.
yeah, it
before
probably
made
did
it
coming
to the
across
mouth.
coming
Yeah.
across the border.
Yeah, it come across the border, not in the mouth.
Yeah.
The other end of the alimentary tract, as we call it. Okay, sorry, I got carried away there.
We digress.
Yeah, I do digress. Okay, tell me about that. Tell me how you met Officer Lomax.
So, figured I had a problem. In 2002, I'd been going to Salt Lake on and off. Would get pills when I could, oxys, things like that I could buy off the street, but heroin was much cheaper.
Couldn't find anybody in Utah County, or were you?
I
what was that? Like, why drive? Why did you
I
drive?
wanted the separation, I think.
Okay.
Because I knew people, but everybody was going to Salt Lake, and I didn't want anybody to really know that I was.
In those days, the early days, also, I think it was a little bit cheaper in Salt Lake,
It-
even though
it
you had
was,
to drive. But
yeah.
it was a little cheaper in Salt Lake than it was in Utah County.
It
may
was,
even still
and it
be
gave
that
me
way, for
again
all I
that
know.
a little bit of separation.
Right.
I started driving, going up, and then
That was my treatment. I went to treatment in Salt Lake because I wasn't going to do treatment in
Okay.
Utah County because I wanted that separation because I was embarrassed. That's not
Exactly.
why you went to Salt Lake. Not
no,
'cause you were embarrassed.
I went again. I wanted to make it look like I was a normal person.
Okay, right, sure.
And so, flash forward to 2002, Salt Lake Olympics. Was that 2002?
Yes, I believe so.
So I worked the Olympics. I volunteered. I worked at Park City Mountain Resort and
Sweet.
Deer Valley.
Okay, cool.
Amazing.
Really cool.
Um,
Still have the coat?
I do.
Cool coat.
It is.
See the bare naked ladies?
I did not.
Oh.
I met Mitt
did.
Romney and met Stein Eriksen, and Stein Eriksen
Oh,
by
yeah.
far was the most interesting of the two.
Oh,
so,
for sure.
um,
For sure.
but I so I
But don't
worked.
tell Mitt.
Worked. Yeah. No, he doesn't. Anyway,
Right.
we digress again. But
I always do.
so I'm driving, and I couldn't. Obviously I can't be shooting dope at the Olympics because I'm going through security. All this. I'd take some pills with me and kind of weaning off a bit, and the Olympics are done, and I have some ulcer issues. I go to the doctor, to my doctor. He gives me a prescription for Lortab. I
Perfect
decide-
remedy for ulcers.
It is, and I decide to take the whole bottle that night, and also I decide to go break into his doctor's office that same night, and so that was my introduction to Utah County Jail.
Really?
Yeah.
What did you find in his? Did you get caught?
I got caught, but
in
I
the
took
act? Or after the fact?
After the fact, because I kept going. I went back like in
Oh,
three
okay.
times with
Did
the
you-
alarm going
did
off.
you
I took the
find some
lockbox
stuff?
off the wall. Oh yeah,
Okay.
I took their lockbox. It was Spanish Fork Clinic.
Okay. Yeah.
Sorry,
I know
folks.
those
They
guys.
know. They know me,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
they know that I did it.
You've made your amends.
Went back, but got caught. But I also picked up 32 felonies for each of the
32.
each of those substances that were in
Yes.
that cabinet, and that was my introduction to
Officer
Utah
Lomax.
County Jail. And over the next 2002 to the last commitment I had in 2010, I was in and out. Met him, went through the out program.
Is that what he was?
He was
doing
he
the
was
out
he
program?
was no he
He
was
was your arresting officer.
yeah well no he worked in the jail, so he was like one of the commanders in the jail, so
Okay.
he would go around to different pods, and he did oversee the out
Out program.
program as the county sheriff's liaison.
Is that
So
your first episode of treatment?
that was not
Okay.
before. So I got out of jail, that was bailed out that first time, and I went to Highland Ridge
Okay.
immediately after.
When was that?
That would have been 2002,
Okay.
probably March.
Do you remember who was at Highland Ridge at the time? Was it Mike Dussault
Maybe.
and Gary Fisher? Maybe.
Maybe. All I remember is they were giving me shots of buprenorphine in the butt, and
Really?
because
That's early.
Yeah, it was.
That's early buprenorphine.
Yeah, yeah.
Interesting.
But that was the first treatment. Then the rest of the treatment was either out program on unit treatment is what that means. I was sentenced to the DORA program, the Drug Offender Reform Act, through Utah County, and the Day Reporting Center. And 1999 was also my first 12-step meeting.
Okay.
And my first Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints Addiction Recovery Program meeting as well. So
Okay.
that
Awesome.
has been 12-step has been the foundation of my recovery, and incarceration was the early enforcer of that. in
Yeah,
my head.
that usually works.
Mhm.
Well, it doesn't always work.
doesn't.
That's not true.
Because I mean, like I said, the first time I went to jail was 2002. I kept going back until 2010, and it was that. So I went in 2009 August. I had to go in and got out. Did 9 months, but did 6 months on the 9 that I was sentenced to, and that's when it clicked in my head. There was a gentleman, a friend that I knew from the program, the church program, Church 12-Step, that was also on the clergy at the jail. And so he could come in almost like client-attorney privilege, come and get me out of the cell anytime, and we'd talk. And he sat me down in the vein of peer support, and not like a sponsor, but just like a friend, and said, "Are you sick of this? Do you want something different?" And I did, and that was the beginning of me making better decisions and me believing in the recovery process.
That you could do that.
Yeah. I'd always, I'd get all spiritual in jail, and as soon as I walked out, "See you, Jesus, I'm good."
Right.
And this last
you're
time,
out.
yeah, because I was out.
I don't need Jesus.
And this last time, it was different. It sunk in,
Oh,
and
good.
I'd lost a marriage, damaged the relationship with my 3 kids.
When was that? Like, when did you get divorced? When did she pack you up and dump you on your parents' doorstep?
So that
in
was
relation to this whole.
That was
99?
2009. So
Okay.
my
So you'd been
date is May 31st of 2009.
Okay, so you got out of jail for the last time in 2002.
In 2010.
Oh, okay, that's right. You
So
said
she
that.
dumped
You
me
said
off.
that. You
I
said
was on the
in
run
that.
from probation when she dumped me off.
Okay.
And so I cleaned up, went through withdrawal, all that. You can't see the scars here, but I'm pretty scarred up from IV use, and I healed up for 3 months, and then probation got a hold of me and sent me back to jail.
Okay. So 2010 was the last time you were in jail.
Mhm.
Last use was when?
May 31st of
2010?
2009.
Okay. Right. So you've been clean and sober ever since.
Yep.
That's a long time.
It's a good amount.
Yeah, it is
And,
good. Every amount is a good
yeah,
amount.
yeah.
But that's a fair amount of time.
But it's just that idea of, that friend, and he's, Dennis is his name. He had been in recovery for almost 40 years at that time, an older
Wow.
gentleman. He's in his 90s now.
Wow.
But he treated me like
Do
a
you
friend.
want something different?
And nobody'd ever asked me that.
Right.
Everybody had said, here's what you got to do.
Right.
If you don't this, you're gonna that. And I'm
Do
like,
you want something
I
different?
would raise my middle finger every time and say, no, I don't have to do that.
I think that's such an interesting way to phrase it too, because it's not, do you want something better? Do you want you want something different?
And
Yeah.
it was life changing.
Yeah,
and that's,
here I am in jail. I want something different than this.
Yeah. And that's what, I mean, the idea of peer support, that's where it took hold in my brain as well. That, you know, you can go to treatment. And people always, if you work in treatment, you're here, well, you don't know, you've never been here. You don't have to be a treatment provider. You don't have to have that lived experience, but it sure helps.
It doesn't hurt.
Yeah.
It for sure doesn't hurt. It's interesting because my previous job, I used to deliver babies for a living, and I used to hear all the time, you can't be a very good obstetrician. You've never been pregnant, right? Well, I haven't. Never will I be, right? And I used to argue against that because I've seen some female obstetricians who are just terrible. I'm not saying all females are terrible, but I've seen some that are terrible, and I've seen some males that are terrible. I thought I was okay, so I argued against it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then I get into this industry, and I sit down with patients, and if I reveal to them that I have used drugs in the past, all of a sudden there's some sort of instant credibility, which is the thing I used to argue against all the time. But I use it now because, sure, I'm going to use it. People start listening when you say, listen, I have felt exactly like you're feeling. I have, you know, laid in my bed and thrown up all over myself and some other things. And I've done that stuff. So that's a sort of instant street credibility, which is weird because I hated that concept.
And I do too. But I had a conversation just on Tuesday at a outreach event with Nevada Homeless Alliance, and I'm just, you know, we have our shower truck there. I'm talking to these two gentlemen and make the connection with one guy just about reading, and you know, my mom was a librarian, and we start talking about things, and he asked me if I was from California because of the surfer hair.
Oh,
and
sure.
I said, no, this is just my COVID haircut. I usually look like a FBI agent. So I get to tell him part of my story. And, you know, again, that peer connection is, for me, was getting away from the stigma and the shame of it. Shame is what kept me entrenched in, kept me out of recovery. And so we're just talking about it, and he says, it's amazing. I can talk to you about this. You've been there. And just a small opening, just enough to get me in there.
Right, it's there. Mm-hmm. It's real. We're close to running out of time, but I want to touch on, you have this alternate persona you have, Skippy LaTroy.
Skippy LaTroy
does a little thing that used to be on Facebook and Instagram, and I don't know if you're still doing it.
It's
much.
still there.
Okay. I haven't seen it recently, I got to be honest with you, but that's my fault, not yours. It's called...
It's just Desk Warrior, Carrots of Instagram.
Is the one that I am most familiar with. Tell
Yeah.
us a little bit about Carrots of Instagram. How'd that come to be? What is it?
So when I left,
Will eating carrots is what it is.
When I first left St. George, I was working at a treatment facility, inpatient treatment facility here. It closed down. I had found another position in Las Vegas. For the first 5 months that I worked in Las Vegas, I commuted daily.
Oh man, that's hard.
It was.
It's about 2 hours.
It's 2 hours.
Okay.
I could drive it a little quicker.
Yeah,
but
but you wind up with.
But I got
extra tickets at the end. But
I got snacky all the time,
Okay.
and it wasn't. And I would get, I'd get a big bag, the big Costco bag of trail mix, and I was killing it like in 2-3 days.
Yeah.
And I was feeling it around the middle.
By trail mix, you mean M&Ms?
M&Ms and peanuts and all that, you know.
Chocolate and some. Yeah.
And so I started packing the little fig bars and carrots, baby carrots, and as I'm driving, I'd set my phone up, put it on hands-free, and I'd just do these little musings or reflections on recovery,
Life and
on my
recovery.
drive.
Right.
And I did that for the entire time. And then when I had moved to Las Vegas, I continued to do it. I went from, I was road warrior when I was driving, I switched to desk warrior, and now basically I do musings on I look at the Narcotics Anonymous just for today and give my musings on the daily reading.
Yeah.
And talk about recovery.
So everybody out there, listen, if you wanna see Will eating some carrots and dropping some nuggets of wisdom on you, Carrots of Instagram, Desk
Skippy
Warrior,
LaTroy.
Skippy LaTroy.
I'm there.
Well, Will, thanks for coming. We're about out of time. I realized I forgot to do a little tiny thing, and that is the second. I don't think I did the Hilton Garden Inn promo, but the second part of our recovery podcast is sponsored by Hilton Garden Inn. It's always sunny and bright at the Hilton Garden Inn. If you happen to be passing through southern Utah and need a great place to stay, give them a Google search. Amenities are great. The pool's awesome. They treat you really well. The staff's awesome.
Russ is a good guy.
Come try the Hilton Garden Inn. That's where you're staying tonight, I assume. And they'll treat you really well. Anyway, thanks for listening today. Next week, we'll have Jared back, so the podcast will have its energy level higher than my energy level is. But really appreciate Will for coming on. Thanks for helping us with your story and letting us look into your life. And have a great day, everybody.
Thank you for joining us today on We Do Recover with Jared Miller.
Help us spread our message of hope. Like, comment, and share.
If you have any topics or ideas for future shows, please share that on our Facebook page.
That Facebook page is We Do Recover with Jared Miller. If you or a loved one needs help, please reach out to us. Again, thank you for listening.
Brought to you by Steps Recovery Center and the St. George Hilton Garden Inn.
This has been a production from a podcast studio.